but I think we are okay at this point. So with that, we will stand and pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let me see. Okay, I'm mute. With that, we have the adoption of the agenda, but I have an item that I'd like to add to that first, and that is I would like to put that on the presentations, and we will give you an update on the COVID-19 by Mr. Johnson. Gentlemen, y'all have any other changes or to the?
That would be item 4B.
4B. Any other comments on the adoption of the agenda? If not, floor on for motion.
Motion for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion on Mr. Cota's motion? Vote, Mr. Cota.
Aye.
Mr. Black. My vote's aye also. Thank you. Can you hear me, Mr. Cota?
You're delayed.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me, Mr. Black? Okay. All right. The next on the agenda is the consent agenda. First, the approval of the minutes. CH2M Hill invoice and appropriating for January through March 2021.
Motion for approval of the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion on Mr. Cota's motion? Vote, Mr. Cota.
Aye.
Mr. Black.
Aye.
I vote aye also.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, sir.
Miranda, Marshall Wynn called me and said he could not get in on the Zoom link. Can you check and see if he is there? If not, if it's okay with Mr. Chairman, I'll give a brief VDOT report in his absence or whatever. Mr. Chairman, it's up to you.
That's fine. That's fine with me.
I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Mr. Chairman, then if it's okay with you.
Okay.
Then I'm just going to give a really brief overrun of the VDOT, and then if anybody wants to ask from the audience or whatever, then, or from, I guess, virtual land, we can ask any questions. But everyone here has the report of everything that they have done all the way through the month. And let's see. I'm not sure if Mr. Bradley Moore had, he had written and presented a statement that was read during the last meeting, and that was forwarded to Mr. Marshall Wynn, and as soon as we get a report from him on that, we will give that. And that's all I have, sir, but we all have the report here, and that report is available to the public should they like to get a copy of it. So I'm going to say that that's my condensed version of the VDOT report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do we go to the public, see if they have any comments they want to make for VDOT?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone have any comments they would like to make for VDOT? We'll make sure that he will get that. Mr. Wynn will get that. He's not present this evening. Can you tell if anyone? Okay. We don't see any, so we just move on. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson ready for his report on the COVID-19?
Ms. Sledge, would you bring in Mr. Johnson? Ms. Sledge, would you bring in Mr. Johnson? Good job. He's there.
Mr. Johnson, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Ms. Russell, and the community. Tonight, I'm just giving you a little more than a quick preview of the COVID vaccination. According to VDH we have had 317 cases in Charles City. We have 7 open cases, 9 deceased, and we've closed 301 cases. According to the website for the state of Virginia, we've had 483,326 cases, 20,860 hospitalizations, and 6,174 deaths. As you all know, we have we've put out a flyer, and we've had a lot of questions pertaining to the town hall meeting. That'll be this Thursday at 6 p.m. on the social media sites from the county and Facebook. On that meeting, we will be discussing with Dr. Sizik. He will be discussing the vaccine itself. He will be talking about side effects, the good and the bad about the vaccine, and answering questions from the public about the vaccine. As of today, I met with members of the Chickahominy Health Division, and on February 4th, we will be doing a vaccination in Charles City at the Social Center from 1 to 5 p.m. Now, I just want to make this clear and understandable to everybody. This is for residents that are 75 and older only for this first go around. 75 and older only. This also will be by appointment only. And you will have, it is not a drive-through procedure. You will have to come into the social center, because once you get your shot, you're going to have to sit for observation for about 15 minutes. So we're going to send out a flyer with all the information on it. You're going to have to call in to my office. My assistant will be able to sign you up. It's on a first come, first served basis for 75-year-old and older. She will sign you up and give you a time slot. We're assigning people for 50 people per hour. So we don't want to get overrun or congested and have time for people to come and go. And that's about as much room as people can they can accommodate. So starting tomorrow, you'll be able to call into my office at 804-652-4511. And my assistant, Rachel Greenhow, will be able to sign you up for an appointment slot. Like I said, we have 200 vaccines for this go around. So it's on a first come, first served basis. You have any questions?
Gentlemen, y'all have any questions? Do I have to unmute this thing?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question if you don't mind.
Yes.
Well, I understand that they'll get the initial shot. You can't hear me? Can you hear me?
You're breaking up a little bit, but go ahead. I get it.
I understand that our elderly community will get the initial shot. I'm more so curious if they'll be able, or will the booster shot be available to them thereafter? Is that going to be scheduled right then and there for them also? Because from what I understand, what I've been reading, that they'll have to get a supplemental shot so many days after that. Is that going to be, that information going to be given to them at that point?
I don't know the answer to that at this time, but on the call Thursday at the town hall, we will have a representative from the health division, the Chickahominy Health Division, Dr. Frank and Dr. Sizik. One specializes in side effects and the vaccine itself, and Dr. Frank is the one to talk to about scheduling vaccines, how the Chickahominy Health Division is scheduling vaccines and who will be eligible for it, and how many they'll have, and those type answers. So the best I can tell you is you would I would state I would tune in to the town hall meeting on Thursday to ask those questions.
Could you at that meeting, is it possible that you be there and answer that ask that question, entertain that question, and be sure that citizens know that there is a shot after that that is required? And I just want to make sure that that question is raised so that they'll get the proper care that they need.
Yes, that's very possible. It is a 2-shot deal, and as far as I know, they will be doing the Moderna shots. So you get a shot, and then 21 to 28 days later, you take your second shot. And from my understanding, they will be scheduling you when you go get the vaccine for your second shot. So they'll come back to do your second shot. Those people that get the first shot, well, they already be on the list to get their second shot.
Thank you. And one other question. Off the top of your head, do you know how many elderly people we have in our community?
I don't off the top of my head. It's about probably a 50-55% of the community is where the average age of the community is about 55. So you're looking at maybe like 25-35% of the population down here is probably seniors.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Calling your office, is that's the only way that the individuals can sign up? There's nothing on the county website that they can sign up for it?
As of now, calling is the best way because we realize that a lot of our seniors that will be eligible to do this don't operate on the computers or have the internet and stuff. So calling would be the best way to get that done and make sure that you're on the list. So we can sign you up right then.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I have one more question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. With the influx of calls coming at one time, do we have the personnel to handle that?
Yes. I think we're going to be okay. We actually, I don't know how it happened, but we got a few calls today and we're setting it up. And if need be, we can also reroute some calls to Miss Miranda or the gentleman at the front desk, Todd, to be able to handle calls. We're also in the process of doing some training for those individuals to also help answer some of the COVID questions. So we're trying to set up a hotline for them and to be able to answer some of the questions.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Also, one more thing. We are working on too, and this came up today, because we realized that we do have some citizens that want the shot but may not be able to get out to get the shot. So we're working with VDH and the Chickahominy Health Division to see if we can go to the homes to get this done. You know, with one of their providers and maybe one of my firefighters, paramedics, to be able to go to the home to be able to give a shot.
Is that something that we can work out with Bay Transit also, to get them involved to help transport people back and forth?
Excuse me?
Bay Transit, our transporter in the community, is that a resource that we could utilize and talk with them to help transport some individuals that don't have access to a car and those types of capabilities?
Yeah, I suppose we could do that. It's going to take a lot of coordination and planning. I don't quite know if we have enough time for this first go round to do that, but that is something that we could look at.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Russell, you want to go from public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Smith, we have this evening a public hearing for the disposition of public property on Wilcox Next Road. tax parcel identification number is 5710. And this is a property that was formerly used for the location of a well for the county water system. And the property owner who supported the county and facilitated the construction of that water system desires to retain that parcel. And so board members were presented with this at your last board meeting, and we are required to hold a public hearing to solicit input from the public regarding the disposition of this property before we can move forward with the contract or implementation of the contract for sale. So we have
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So you finished?
I am.
Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the public hearing for the Roy White property disposition down on Wilcox Next Road. We have to have a public hearing for this. So the rule for the public hearing is if you represent yourself, you'll be allowed 3 minutes, and we'd like for you to state your name. If you represent a group or organization, you will get 5 minutes. And when we do have about 4 public hearings, so that rule will stand for all public hearings. Okay? So our public hearing is now open. Does anyone have any comments they would like to make on the Roy White property disposition?
Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting on comments to come in, if we have any, is it okay if I make a statement on this?
Yes, sir.
I asked this property, and Dr. Russell, I'm going to ask for you to nod your head to make sure that what I'm saying is correct. This property was actually given to the county free of charge by the previous owner and to use as a well site. And then Mr. Roy White purchased the property, and we stopped using that property for well site with the addition of our new RO plant and the drilling of new wells. So what, in essence, all we're doing is giving back the property technically to its owner. Is that a good way of putting it, Mr. Boyd? And Mr. Boyd said close enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to set that out there. And all the questions that I had as far as the well down there were answered. And as far as I'm concerned, we're good to go.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public on the public hearing for the Roy White property disposition? Do you see it on your screen? Because I don't. Okay. Well, in that case, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay, in that case, the public hearing is closed. Yes. Therefore, you can see now.
On the comments. Yeah, and I'm watching as well. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve the transfer request of Mr. White's property back to him from the county, as recommended by the county attorney.
In discussion on Mr. Black's motion? Can you hear me? Vote, Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Coder?
Aye.
My vote's aye also. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson is saying, Mr. Smith, we have she can't hear you.
He wasn't muted.
Hello?
Unmuted.
Yeah, so if you're, it was because you were.
I get it mixed up. Okay. Next, real estate assessment tax.
Ready for me, Mr. Smith?
Mhm.
Go ahead and describe the request.
The real estate tax assessment. You can go ahead, Ms. Dr. Russell.
Mr. Smith, Mr. Coder, Mr. Black, members participating remotely, our Commissioner of Revenue proposed at your last meeting to change the schedule and due date for real estate taxes in Charles City County. That requires a public hearing, and the proposal is for the assessments, the period for the assessment to be from January 1 to June 30th. There was a advertised public hearing, and we are soliciting comments from our community before implementing the proposed change in the real estate tax year.
Okay. Again, I'll get it straight for the next meeting. Again, this is a public hearing for the real estate assessment tax relief. Again, the 3 and 5 minutes rule apply. Our public hearing is now open. Did anyone from the public did they make any comments about the relief?
I see no comments, Mr. Smith.
Okay, no comments from the public on the relief. The public hearing is now closed. Gentlemen, you have any comments on the real estate assessment tax relief?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Real estate.
Real estate assessment tax.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Boyd. Okay, yeah. Do you take action on just this one?
I can read it into the record.
Right, there's two different things. Okay, bring that up at the next subject. We don't want to get it mixed up. Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Anyway, let's make sure that we keep
It separate.
Keep these separate.
So the first one is the relief.
No, the first one is the assessment date.
Okay, the assessment date.
Right.
Okay. So we need to act on that one first.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Keep
For
forgetting this thing.
Mr. Black's benefit and the public that may be watching, when Mr. Miles was in District 3, he had a lot of constituents complaining, and very rightfully so, because the assessments were coming in and the tax rate was being imposed technically on January versus in July 1. So they were having to pay the new tax rate.
Tax on real estate. That's what that first one.
Mute yourself. So they were having to pay the new rate 6 months before the fiscal year. So we changed that, and we went through a lot of headaches to change our tax rate to accommodate. This will now accommodate just the assessment that comes in, and it will officially change the date from January 1 to July 1 to where it goes into effect, so that they align. And this cuts out a lot of paperwork for the Commissioner of Revenue and all. I talked with her in detail over this week to make sure of what we were doing. Okay.
And the citizens as well. Most of the citizens.
Say that again, Ms. Smith.
It's for the benefit of the citizens, particularly to avoid confusion.
So
trying to word it better. What happened?
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we realign the real
I
estate
keep getting it mixed up.
mute. I motion that we pass the real estate attachment date as presented so that it will align itself with the actually rate charged. That's my motion.
In discussion on Mr. Coda's motion. Vote Mr. Coda.
Aye.
Mr. Black.
Aye.
My vote's aye also. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment? We are now on to the tax relief item. Ms. Drew Harris, you mentioned that it was worded wrong, so I hope we have made that perfectly clear. What we just did was on the assessment date. Now we're on the tax relief for the elderly. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The next public hearing will be on the tax relief for the elderly. Okay. You have anything you want to read on that?
Yes, sir. Struggle with it too. Mr. Smith, Mr. Coda, Mr. Black, and our constituents who are participating remotely. Our Commissioner of Revenue, Mrs. Denise Smith, is requesting that the Board of Supervisors consider amending the ordinance for tax relief for elderly and disabled citizens in Charles City County. The proposed amendment for tax relief is attached for your information, and it outlines the application requirements as well as the asset and income guidelines for tax relief.
Thank you, Ms. Russell.
Mhm.
Okay, this public hearing for the tax relief for the elderly. Public hearing is now open. Does anyone that want to make any comments about the tax relief for the elderly? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Gentlemen,
If you
The information that Mr. Boyd went over just previously concerning the tax relief for the elderly was defined earlier in the public hearing, correct? Oh, very broadly. Okay, so do we need to go over that so that they can hear what you said to define that out to them? Do you need a headset for that?
You can speak right to my microphone if you want. That's up here.
I mean, I can speak to it as commissioner if someone would like.
Mrs. Denise Smith is on the line. She can speak to that also. And so, yeah, to avoid you having to come up. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, that's why I requested revising the ordinance, and I'm requesting the revision in 3 areas. To adopt a 3-year cycle filing requirement for annual certification for those who are already in the program. So they could go 3 years without actually having to do the full application, but sign a statement stating their income is the same. The second area of change would be to increase the maximum annual exemption from $1,000 to $1,500. There have been several citizens who received 100% relief, but because of their assessment, they technically did not get 100% relief, even though they were entitled to it. And I also propose to increase the income levels and the percentage of tax exemption. I did want to note that this particular ordinance has not been revised since 2007. So I felt this was a good time to propose this to you, and I sincerely hope that you will consider it. It will benefit the senior citizens and disabled persons greatly. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, do you think it'd be wise to open back up the public hearing so that citizens could comment on what Mrs. Denise Smith just mentioned, going into detail about the tax relief for the elderly?
Yeah, that's fine. Back up and
I can't hear.
yes, I'll open the public hearing back up and give the ordinance or anyone a chance to make comments on the tax relief for the elderly.
Mr. Smith, may I, while people are given a chance to type a comment?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Smith, the increased amount that you show, the total income, if someone is that's from 0 to 30,000, they would receive the total of $1,500 on that. Is that the way that I read this tax exemption table?
No, it would depend on what their assessment was. It depends. Like if their assessment was, $50,000, then of course their tax would not be $1,500. But we had some people who had homes that they were blessed that they were well maintained, and that was their home and that was their asset. But because of the assessment, the amount of tax exceeded the $1,000. So therefore, they did not get the full benefit of what they were entitled.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to ask that. That gave people time to type in a comment if they had any.
And I don't see any, Mr. Smith.
Anyone, any comments? You all see any comments?
No, sir.
Okay, well, if that's.
Hold on just 1 second. Someone just came in on, sir.
You see,
oh, that's all right. She's just making a
she
comment.
just make a comment to help.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, now the public hearing is closed. Gentlemen, y'all have any other comments or discussion?
I'm good, sir.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd asked me to make sure that the board's action regarding the proposed ordinance change recognizes that it includes language that it would take effect on the date of its adoption. And I will pass this around.
Okay.
Descriptive language.
Okay. Any other comments? Not floors open for motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion to approve the tax relief for the elderly amendment as presented by Mrs. Denise Smith.
Okay, any discussion on Mr. Black's motion? Vote, Mr. Black.
Aye.
Mr. Coda.
Aye.
I vote aye also. Thank you. Next, S Power, page 42.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
since we are virtual, and I don't want to ask to amend the conditions after the public hearing, I would like to, as soon as after it's presented by Dr. Russell, I would like to propose an amendment to the conditions. So therefore, the public can also hear my suggestion that Mr. Boyd has already reviewed and approved. So if that's okay with you, after she presents, I would like to make a comment on the proposed to the conditions.
Okay.
Mr. Smith, this is agenda item has a very long description. So with your patience, I'd like to read it so the public is aware of
That's fine.
what we're considering. So this is special use permit application 06-2020 S Power Amendment. Application by Sustainable Property Holdings, LLC, also known as S Power, to amend conditions associated with SUP 01-2018 and SUP 02-2018, and to amend SUP 01-2018 to include tax parcel number 244A, which was described in the original application for SUP 01-2018 and shown on the project map submitted with the application, but inadvertently not listed therein by tax parcel number. The specific additions to be amended are condition number 3, which addresses the work hour limitations applicable to the construction of the solar project. Condition number 5, which imposes vegetative buffer requirements for visual screening of the solar project from adjacent properties. And condition number 22, which imposes a minimum annual tax payment on the solar project. The applicant proposes to amend and reinstate condition 3 in its entirety to provide for work to extend longer where daylight permits.
You're reading it.
And to permit work on weekends subject to specific conditions. Amend condition number 5 to allow the applicant to limit the size or omit of vegetative buffers where the applicable neighboring owner has signed a written waiver of this requirement, and amend condition number 2 to clarify the minimum annual tax applies to tax imposed on the solar project's generating equipment. In addition, the applicant proposes to add a new condition 23, which would require that they reimburse Charles City County in connection with any review and inspection fees and costs incurred to do so. The county comprehensive plan identifies this property as an industrial reserve, all but tax map number 1396 and agricultural forest lands tax parcel number 1396. The subject property is zoned agricultural district A1 and consists of 2,271 acres. The property is located on the east side of Roxbury Road, State Route 106, between Wayside Road and Cactus Road, and on the south side of Old Union Road, east of the intersection with Waymax Road. And this is probably the most important part. I just want to read the tax parcel numbers that are involved in the 2,271 acre project. And they are tax parcel numbers 23-7-1, 23-7-2, 2323, 2325, 2326, 241, 242, 243, 244, 244A, 245, 246, 247, 2461, 2462, 1346, 1347, 1396, and 14-22. That is the end of the description for this SUP application, Mr. Smith.
And Mr. Chairman, may I at this time?
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, I was approached by a lot of constituents on item number 2, where it says amend condition 5 to allow the applicant to limit the size of or omit vegetative buffers where the applicable neighboring landowner has signed a written waiver of the requirements. I approached S Power about this, and they sent in a revision to that, and I'm going to read it Mr. Boyd has already looked at it and approved it to make sure that it is legal for us to add this in. And I wanted to do this prior to the public hearing, so therefore the public could have a chance to comment if necessary. We're going to replace item number 2, and the applicant, and it's going to say amend condition 5. The applicant shall maintain a 100-foot vegetated buffer around the perimeter of the facilities. Where the site abuts Route 106, the buffer shall be increased to 300 feet. Existing trees and vegetation shall not be removed in this area except as necessary for construction of entrances to the property. Where existing vegetation is sparse or cleared for construction of entrances, an additional landscaping buffer consisting of a single row of Azuja occidentals at least 3 feet tall and spaced 5 feet on center shall be planted by the applicant to screen the use from view from outside the project property. The applicant shall submit a landscaping and planning plan with the first submission of the site plan. Notwithstanding the foregoing, no such vegetated buffer shall be required. I'm waiting until all the noise subsides. Okay, let's start right there. That sentence there. Notwithstanding the foregoing, no such vegetated buffer shall be required around those portions of the perimeter of the facilities abutting land whose owners have executed a written waiver of such buffering requirements. Waiver cannot be granted for parcels adjacent to occupied residential dwellings. So what that in essence does, it does not allow an adjoining landowner give up the vegetated buffer that will affect their neighbor. And so that protects everyone around the perimeter of the property. And so I'm proposing that be added, and when the motion is made, that be added to replace item number 2 to amend condition number 5. And if anyone would like to see this, it will be on file with Miranda in Michelle Johnson's office. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Yeah, I just have a question for Dr. Russell. I notice it says that the property is impacted by the RMA and RPA, Resource Management Area and Resource Protected Area. Is there any information out to the public on how it's impacted by RMA and RPA? I know environmental issues are big in our community now, and I just want that information put out to them.
Yes, Mr. Black, the project is going through development plan review in phases, but that scope of work began with what we call a delineation of environmental features on the property, and the applicant is required to be in compliance with the Chesapeake Bay Preservation District boundaries, as you described, the RPA and the RMA, as well as non-tidal wetlands, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the impact to those wetlands features. If citizens are interested in reviewing those development plans, the approved, so not the ones that are works in progress, but they're Mr. Mitchell's 2 phases right now, 2 that have been approved. That's public information, and they're more than welcome to come to our department and have access to review those development plans.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone in the public has any comments on that? Ladies and gentlemen, this public hearing is for S Powell, and what they are asking is they want to make an amendment to their original conditions. Dr. Russell just read their conditions, and Mr. Cota has read one that if it passes, I would like to put that in with our records also. So our public hearing is now open. Does anyone have any comments on S. Powell?
council to make any comments on this.
Who, okay, we do have Rob
Benisha.
Benisha. Rob, do you want to make any comments at this time?
Hello, hi.
How you doing?
Good evening, Chairman Smith, members of the board, and Dr. Russell. Thank you for your time. My name is Rob Benisha. I'm an attorney with Hirschler and Richmond, and I represent S-Power. And I'm glad to talk to you all today about this project. A brief bit of housekeeping. Mr. Cota, we submitted some language as well earlier today, and I'd love to just discuss with you a slight change to what you submitted, very slight, but it's the exact same intent, and we want to solve the exact same thing. But before I do that, Ms. Russell, is there?
Hello.
Sorry. Hello.
Hold on just a moment.
Bill Cota here. I did see the slight modifications that you did. However, I'm not recommending to the board.
Oh, okay.
The reason being because I did not have a chance to get that through the county attorney to make sure that it was all snuffed out exactly. And the amendment that I proposed definitely satisfies the concerns that the citizens had. So that's why I did not use it. I just found out about your other one right prior to the meeting, so I didn't even consider it, and that's the reason.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, okay.
You can proceed on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Dr. Russell, is there any chance that I could share my screen so I could control the slideshow really briefly?
He's asking, can he share the screen? Yeah. Hold on for a second, Rob.
Sure thing.
Ms. Sledge, are you able to give Mr. Benisha permission to share his screen?
I think it's sharing right now.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. As mentioned, S-Power is looking to amend some conditions on its projects, on its project here in Charles City County. I just want to give a little bit of brief background. So S-Power until December was co-owned by two companies, the Alberta Investment Management Company and AES, and AES basically bought out AMCO. And now S-Power is entirely owned by AES. So going forward, you may hear about AES rather than S-Power, but it's the exact same company. It's just who owns it. AES and S-Power is one of the first and oldest independent power producers. AES started after power deregulation in the 1970s, has 19,000 employees with operations in 17 countries, and $4 billion in annual revenue and gigawatts of generation. S-Power is glad to be wholly owned by AES now, and to be joining up with such a illustrious team with a long history of activity and a long track record of success in bringing these projects to market. And S-Power is especially happy to be working with Charles City County, investing in this community. Some examples of some of the time and support that S-Power is committed to investing includes an $11,000 scholarship to the high school to fund student and educator field trips, 3 Wi-Fi hotspots, which will enable students for the year to access the internet, lunches for first responders, and a donation to the food bank, as well as a donation towards the county's annual fireworks display. Briefly about the project, as mentioned, the project location is in the western part of the county. It sort of straddles Chairman Smith's and Supervisor Coda's districts. It's about 2,200 acres of private land that was previously timberland. The project size will be 175 megawatts. And it was previously permitted in 2018 through 2 special use permits. And those permits, excuse me, in 2019, those permits were applied for in 2018. That's why they have 2018 numbers. And we're beginning the work now, and we are targeting March 2022 for flipping the switch and delivering power to the grid. We believe this will generate $10.5 million in property taxes, including $4 million in real estate taxes over 35 years. And this is going to have a low impact on the community from a nuisance standpoint or whatever, but a high value impact on the economy. And that's what we're really excited about. This is the project. As you can see, it is generally bound by Roxbury Road on the west, Wayside on the south, extends almost to Barnett's Road, sort of separated from Barnett's Road by the aggregate quarry. And that's the main bulk of it. That's called Site A. And then Site B is to the north. And the Site B would then connect to the substation, which is further up north. This is a general depiction of what the panel layouts would look like. As you can see the buffering around the exterior edges, that 100-foot buffering. The panels are the dark gray rectangles, and extending through the middle, you can see some overhead power lines that would be connecting to what's called a collector substation at the northern tip, where basically all the power lines from all the different panels would all come together. They'd concentrate the power and then run one single line up north to the big transmission line. Here is a representative, and as I said, representative. These are not set in stone. Engineers are still trying to figure out, given the layouts and things that were mentioned earlier by Supervisor Black, like RMAs and RMAs, or RMAs and RPAs, I should say, how to best align these panels, and the engineers are still working that out. Although site work has begun, the actual layout of these panels isn't set in stone. But again, this shows on the western side on Roxbury Road a 300-foot buffer being respected there, and 100-foot buffers around the remainder of the perimeter of the project. So here's a quick little timeline. S-Power obtained options to purchase this land back in 2016 and applied for these special use permits in 2018. The project is known as Skipjack Solar. It's a little confusing, but for some reason in the initial applications it was referred to as Keydet Solar, but the name was changed. Same project, just different name. And it was 2 SUPs, one for that Site B we talked about, that one tax parcel off to the north, and one for Site A, which is everything to the south. So SUP 0118 was for all of the property south of Cattail Road. Those permits were approved in 2019. S-Power then closed on the acquisition of the property in October of 2020. And
Mr. Benatia.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate all that information that you're giving us, but the purpose of this public hearing is to comment on the amendments that y'all are asking for. Absolutely,
sir. I'm getting to that in just 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not trying to eat up all your time, I promise. The construction started this month. As I mentioned, this is Site A. When we filed the requested amendments, one of the things we're looking to do is to fix the listing of the tax map numbers. The original application included a map that included all of these parcels in Site A that is just north of Wayside, and one or two, I guess, right in the middle, both have the same tax map number, 244A. They were inadvertently omitted, and that's why we're just amending to make sure that, you know, they weren't advertised, but they were in the application described by the legal description and shown on the map in the application. They just weren't listed from a tax map number perspective, and that's one of the fixes. The other amendments we're seeking are to revise the work hour limits as discussed, to revise the vegetated buffer requirements as discussed, and to clarify the applicability of the minimum property tax requirement as applying only to machinery and tools, and to require S-Power to reimburse county costs in reviewing plans and inspecting the site for permit issuance and compliance. So again, there's no new property that we're including here. This is a technical fix of the Scrivener's error in the application. The project was described and shown on that map, and it was simply omitted in the listing in the application and the resolution. As you can see, there's a big parcel to the southeast that says 24-4, and these in the map are erroneously listed as 24-4 instead of 24A, the ones that are circled in red. So that's what's going on there. As we mentioned, we're trying to revise work hour limits, and we're trying to change the vegetative buffering. We've gone over that. I'm not going to take up your time with the rest of the presentation because I think it sort of speaks for itself in the presentation that Dr. Russell gave. Thank you very much for that. So I guess without further ado, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Russell.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for the presentation. Dr. Russell, you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay.
You need to close your public hearing.
Yeah. Did y'all see in the comments that Susan might have sent in?
I don't see it, Mr. Chairman.
Doesn't it take a little while to type up? Should give a little bit.
I'm fine,
So we have some Becky Stewart, Nancy Drew Harris.
but they made comments.
Right now, the question.
They made comments, not questions. Ms. Stewart and Ms. Harris. But we still can wait. I mean, I don't have no problem with that. Okay, seeing no questions or comments,
Hold on just 1 second, sir. One just came in. I don't quite understand it. It says, can you clarify the personal property taxes?
I can if you'd like me to.
He mentioned.
He said he can do it.
Okay, fine. Go ahead. So,
all right. So really briefly, one of the conditions related to property taxes set a limit, or rather a lower, a minimum, a threshold minimum of the amount of taxes that S-Power would pay, and that number is $300,000. What we have done is we've said that minimum only applies to one component, which is the machinery and tools tax, which is charged on the actual physical equipment at the site, which means that the real property tax is not subject to any minimum threshold, but the machinery and tools tax is, which is why we actually think that that's a benefit to the county, and helps the county to make sure that the county gets at least $300,000 on the machinery and tools tax.
okay, thank you, sir. No other comments? If no other comments, public hearing is now closed. Gentlemen, y'all have any comments or questions at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I do, just really brief.
Good, Ms. Scota.
In addition to what Rob said about the personal property taxes, there was can you hear me? Okay. There was actually an error made by our previous planning department, and it was an error that would have resulted in a $4 million loss to the county. And S-Power realized once it was brought to their attention that it was an error, and without any question whatsoever stepped up to the plate to amend these provisions or whatever to where the county is covered. If the slide that he showed earlier on showed $4 million for one figure, and that was what the error was. By doing what S Power did today, they in essence corrected a $4 million error that would have cost us exactly that. So my hat's off to them for doing that. S Power, you've been a good partner from day one that I have seen, and I thank you for that. That was just to talk more about the personal property taxes, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I'm ready to make a
Thank you,
motion.
sir.
I have one more comment, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Black?
Is it possible to ask the constituents that are in our public hearing right now if it's enough time that we're giving them to respond? Because I noticed that we've been getting late comments. Is this enough time that we're giving?
Mr. Chairman, may I, as a board member?
Yes, sir.
The only, and I don't have a problem with this, but what's happening now that we've gone virtual is our comment section is now turning into question. And we did not do that during our regular in attendance public hearing. I don't have a problem with it myself because they're asking good questions and this and that and the other. But it's supposed to be comment that we receive, not question. We can change that, not in our bylaws or anything, Mr. Boyd, but we can accept questions and all at the chairman's discretion, correct? Okay, good. All right. And so you asked if we were giving them enough time.
Yeah, my matter was just on time, not if it's a question or comment, just time to type. I mean, with this, with technology now in our aging community, people are adjusting to this technology and type in at a rapid speed. And I just want to make sure we give them ample amount of time to respond. That's all.
We can give them a couple more minutes, no problem.
Mr. Smith, someone did ask a question about the buffer requirements and if they're changing, if they're greater or lesser, and they're the same. Should defer to the applicant.
Would you like me to speak to that?
Yes, please.
Okay. They're actually the same. The only issue is that there are certain spots where the adjoining property is, for example, timberland or quarry, where maintaining a buffer against a quarry or adjoining timberland where there isn't a house doesn't really make a lot of sense, and that's what we're looking to get a little relief on there. That would just give flexibility in terms of the layout. As you can see from, I don't know if you were able to see on one of my slides, given the amount of wetlands on the site, the configuration of those panels is a little bit like Tetris. It's kind of tough to fit some of those panels in. So a little bit of flexibility here and there where the site adjoins unoccupied or not residential property would be helpful.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Just wanted to share with board members that the Planning Commission did consider this proposed amendment at their December meeting, and all members present voted in favor of the proposed amendment.
Let's wait a couple seconds and see if anyone else chime in. I think the buffer zone is important regardless of the neighborhood change. Okay, gentlemen, floor's open for motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the amendments to the provisions as presented with the addition of item number 2, which affects condition number 5, and that I read. With that change, I motion for approval.
And that would be included in to the records, the one that you read.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on Mr. Cota's motion? Vote, Mr. Cota.
Aye.
Mr. Black.
Aye.
My vote's aye also. Thank you.
I mean, the time limit's on.
Just ask for the comments if they have any, and we will read them as we go along. If anyone put any in, we'll just come back to them. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your first public comment period. If you have any comments that you would like to make, I ask that you will type them in at this time. And as we continue with the agenda, we will look and see if you typed any in. And if so, we will come back and address those comments. Okay? You want to proceed on, Ms. Dr. Russell?
Oh, you're gonna move forward?
Well, I'm gonna give them time. If they type them in, we will come back and address the public comments. That will give them more time.
Absolutely. The next item on the agenda, Mr. Smith, is board appointments. District
You muted.
The next item on the agenda, Mr. Smith, are board appointments.
Gentlemen, do y'all have any appointments this evening? Mr. Black, you have any?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
First, I'd like to thank everyone who attended my interviews and vetting. It gave me the chance to get to know you all and know what goals that you all had in mind and if they align with the county and us progressing moving forward. So the first reappointment that I'd like to make is Mr. William Lewis to the Board of Building Code Appeals. And okay, cool. Mr. Theodore Richard Jr. also to that Board of Building Code Appeals. I also like to reappoint Mr. John Tabb to the Center for Local History. I like to reappoint.
This came back from a search.
Okay. I motion to reappoint Doris Holloman, Ms. Doris Holloman to the Housing Task Force. I motion to reappoint both Mr. William Bailey and Andrew Adams to the Planning Commission. I motion to reappoint Norman Hoffmeyer Jr. to the Wetlands Board, and also reappoint Mrs. Edna Bates to the Board of Equalization. That is my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Heard Mr. Black's motion and any discussion on his appointments and his motion. Not close on for motion.
That was just my.
Okay. Any discussion on Mr. Black's motion? You vote, Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Dakota?
Aye.
My vote's aye. Thank you.
Henrico Area Services Board, staff appointment for that.
Okay.
And I would love to serve.
On the Henrico
Area Services Board.
Okay, I'll appoint Mrs. Russell to Henrico Area Service Board. Any discussion on the motion? Vote, Mr. Black.
Aye.
Ms. Cota.
Aye.
My vote's aye. Thank you. Next.
If there are no more appointments, would Miss Sludge, would you bring Miss Abby Pemberton into the show under County Administrator's Report? The next item, Mr. Smith, is the tennis grant.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Oh.
Ms. Russell.
Miss Pemberton, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Can you hear me?
It's a little bit better. Let me see. I have it at 100%. I have it.
Ms. Pemberton, are you there?
Testing.
Can you get a little louder?
Hello. Can
That
you
was
hear me?
better.
Yeah, you're getting better.
Okay. I'll try to. If you
Okay, we can hear you. We can hear you now.
Okay, great. I'll keep this short. The first item I have tonight is the county's recreation department recently was awarded a $1,500 grant fund from the U.S. Tennis Association's Mid-Atlantic Division. And the purpose of this grant funding is to facilitate the county in a resurfacing of the social center tennis courts. And the tennis courts at the social center are in pretty rough shape. So the recreation department estimates that this project total cost to resurface would be about $8,000. We're really hoping to tackle this project this fiscal year, so before June of 2021. And with this $1,500 grant, the county cost would only be about $6,500, which would come from the recreation department's current year budget. So staff is requesting your authorization to accept these grant funds and potentially pursue the resurfacing project further. The recreation department will be they're still finalizing estimates, so they'll be coming back to you in the next few months with more details before proceeding with the project. But wanted to make you aware of this award funding now.
Thank you, Ms. Pemberton. Gentlemen, you all have heard the request coming from our finance director. You have any questions or comments for Ms. Pemberton?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chairman, for Ms. Pemberton, but I'd like to say that these things, these grants in the form of resurfacing in our tennis court and funding for our sports and youth, I think they're great, and I think we need to promote and recruit more student athletes to participate in a wide range of activities that aren't traditionally established in our community. So this is a great sign, and that's all the comment I had to make, but I'd like to make a motion to accept the funds of $1,500 from the Mid-Atlantic Division of the U.S. Tennis Association.
Any discussion on Mr. Black's motion? You vote, Mr. Black?
Aye.
Ms. Coda?
Aye.
My motion, my vote is aye also.
Great. Well, moving on to the next item. In your meeting materials, you'll find an updated summary of the county projects completed with the use of CARES funding. This project list has not changed very much since the last update you received, but we just wanted to kind of give you an update. And in the week since the last check-in, several of these projects have been completed. So the table below that you'll see in your notebook provides basically a quick categorical summary of how the money's been spent, and with an itemized breakdown on the following page.
Yes, I see that. Y'all have any comments on that? It's just more or less an informational item.
Yes. If you have any questions, by all means, please reach out.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Mr.
Is this
Black?
Mrs. Pemberton, is this posted on our county website?
It is, well, on the county website is a link to the this information illustrated in the Balancing Act, the interactive simulation, but these same numbers are channeled through that platform, allowing, I guess, with the goal there to allow the community to go in and kind of play around with the numbers and see how kind of drill down into them.
So the itemization sheet right here is online, and the citizens have access to this actual sheet that we have in front of us.
Well, it is the actual the sheet that you're looking at is like the actual sheet listing is not online, but it's these numbers are available through the portal. They're just illustrated slightly differently. They're listed categorically like this, but it's just through this simulation tool.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Cole, do you have any comments or questions for Ms. Pemberton?
No, I just want to thank you all for providing this information on a monthly basis so that the citizens can see how we are spending the CARES Act money. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For a second.
Moving on to the third item, this is where the real fun begins.
Ms. Pemberton,
Yes.
could you go over the spending by category and the amount, please?
Sure, yes. Just kind of reading down the line for
Yes.
Yes.
information and technology and teleworking, $399,216. Then K through 12 public schools, county school system, $259,586. Safe access to government, $156,276. Public safety employees, $155,239. Sanitation and disinfection of county facilities, $153,798. Building modifications, $31,215. Operation of government services, $14,000. Recreation, $12,980. Additional personnel, $12,672. PPE, $10,878, and security cameras, $9,000. So bringing it to a total of $1,214,990.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda is item C, school budget.
Yeah, so a request, the next item is a budget amendment request from the school division. With the end of fiscal year 2020, as of June 30th of this year, the schools reverted a total of $293,517 back to the county's fund balance as the year rolls over. These funds are primarily from a final disbursement from the state that was received, I guess, the end of June, right before the close of the fiscal year. And the school division is requesting the ability to essentially carry over these funds for use in their FY21 budget to accomplish projects in their operating and CIP funds. And the main, the two efforts that they're requesting to accomplish with these is, the main one is a CIP project to refinish, I guess, replace existing carpeting throughout the schools and replace with a concrete floor refinishing for an estimated total of $212,317. And also the second item there, they would love to give bonuses to their full-time employees of a one-time $650 each, which would come to a total of $81,200. You'll see additional details of this request are included in your meeting packets. But I welcome any of your questions at this time. I'm sure you may have a few.
Gentlemen, y'all have any questions for Ms. Pemberton?
Yes,
Comments?
sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I have plenty.
Okay.
But I'm going to make it really brief.
Okay.
I'm going to motion that we defer this until, since we are in January, I want to motion that we defer this until our February meeting so that we can have more time to look this over. This is something new that has been attempted many, many years. We've never done this before. We've never done it with other departments. And before we start a precedent, I would like to have some review over this.
Okay.
I would like to defer until our March meeting because there's plenty of time to run it over then. That gives us plenty of time to talk about this. So my motion is to defer this until our March meeting for a decision.
In the meantime, specific information will be helpful. Please let me know. We can make sure that it's provided to you.
Any discussion on Mr. Cole's motion to defer this until our March meeting? That flows on for motion. You
I'm-
made the motion. Your vote, Mr. Scota.
Aye.
Mr. Black.
Uh,
My vote's aye also. Thank you. Next on the agenda.
This item is a similar item, but slightly unique. Again, from schools, the request has been submitted at the close of the last fiscal year. The school textbook fund balance had a remaining $33,074. And the school division is currently preparing to roll out a new updated science textbook, and is currently requesting an amendment to carry over these funds to the current budget year to facilitate the new updated science textbook. Again, additional details of this request are also included in your meeting materials, but they have requested your approval to access these funds.
After the school budget amendment, I saw the next one is Plan RVA charter. I don't see this on the agenda.
I believe it might have, I think this was I guess a two-prong request.
On that. That's
So
all.
defer them both.
Defer them both.
Yes.
But that's not on the agenda technically.
Ms. Pemberton, did you get that?
Yes, I did. Okay, so defer this one till March as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. You, but
Mr. Boyd, this what I'm saying. This particular item is not on the agenda. This is about a textbook fund, which is totally different from what we just voted on and deferred. And that's why I was confused, because I didn't see it on the agenda, and I'm like, where is it at? Ms. Pemberton says, well, it's a two-part, but we motioned and voted on item C, which included this. At the discretion of the chairman, he can switch the agenda and make this item CA, and we can consider this. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Okay, here we go.
Can you change the agenda now?
You can. At the discretion of the chairman, you can change the agenda at any time per our bylaws. So what I'm going to suggest to you, sir, is this is a totally separate subject from the other that we voted to defer. I'm going to ask you to amend the agenda and consider this item as item number CA. So therefore, we don't have to change all the other items on the agenda. So that's my suggestion to you, Mr. Chairman, but you do as you see.
Mr. Black, you okay with the adding it, changing the agenda?
I'm fine with it. I'm just perplexed by the $33,000. It's for our school textbooks, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's put it on the agenda, then we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's put it on the
We'd amend the agenda to add that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hands up for discussion.
Well, actually, let Mrs. Pemberton, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, go ahead and do the presentation
That's
on it.
fine. Ms. Pemberton,
Yes, sir.
you want to do the presentation about the textbooks?
Sure. And then I'll keep it real short, just to recap. The school division is requesting your consideration to amend their adopted FY21 textbook fund budget to essentially carry over $33,074 from the FY20 budget that was reverted back to the county for the specific purpose of facilitating their upcoming rollout of new science textbooks.
Okay.
I welcome any questions at this time if you have any.
I don't have a question, Mr. Chairman, but I have a comment as to why I asked you to do this really quick. And this is actually a totally different item in its own. And I do not have a problem at all with considering the 33,000. Is it 33,000, Ms. Pemberton, or 21,793?
The request before you is $33,074.
Okay, and that was already set aside in their textbook fund. And so they want to update their science textbooks. I don't have an issue with this product. That's why I wanted to go ahead and amend the agenda and put this up for consideration. That's all the discussion I have on it.
Mr. Black, you have any comments or questions?
No, I do not, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the request from the schools and for carryover in the amount of 33,074 for the schools textbooks fund.
Any discussion on Ms. Coda's motion? Vote, Ms. Coda?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Votes aye. Thank you. Russell? I'll wait till we get to the end for the next one, and then we'll just go ahead and make comments as we go through the next one.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Smith, Mr. Black, Mr. Coda, Charles City County is a member of Plan RVA, our Regional Planning District Commission, and Plan RVA has on their February Commission agenda a proposed amendment to their charter regarding local membership dues and a special assessment. The proposed charter, based on Charles City County population, as reported by the Weldon Cooper Center, dues for the upcoming fiscal year are proposed at $3,509. Mr. Coda, who serves as the county's representative on Plan RVA, if it is included as an action item in February, would be voting on the proposed charter amendment, which includes these fees. And we are seeking guidance from the full board regarding your decision, or your support or lack of support for this charter amendment.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, sir.
So what exactly we're actually considering the proposed charter revisions from Plan RVA, and the revision says that they're not going to charge us a membership fee. Is that correct?
They're not?
No, that they are now going to charge us a membership fee based on our cap of 50 cents per person.
Yes, sir.
So that's the revision that we're considering.
Yes.
Okay. We're not considering whether or not we want to be a member, none of that, just whether or not we're going to pay it or not.
Yes.
What if we say no?
Well, we can ask in February at the commission meeting, Mr. Coda.
I'm just curious. Do we really have a choice? Because what concerns me about this Plan RVA, I'm a business owner in this county. Business owners in this entire district experienced a sales tax increase from 5.3 to 6.0%. And as a business owner, I found out about it on Facebook, and I'm a member of Plan RVA, but I found out about this on Facebook prior to ever getting the notice from the state that I had to increase my sales tax to fund this. So now they've raised our sales tax in this county and the counties that Plan RVA serves in order to fund it, and now they're asking for fees from us in the amount of $3,500 in addition to that. Is that correct?
I don't know about the first part, Mr. Coda. The second part,
Okay, well,
3509, that is correct.
I can attest to the first part due of being a business owner and also being a member of Plan RVA, which was an offshoot from the Greater Richmond in the first place, correct?
Name change.
Well, it was a name change, but that was being fun. You know, I'll get off the soapbox because I know Mrs. Johnson is having a heart attack right now at her house, so I'll just stop. But that's fine. Well, we're going to consider this in February anyway, aren't we?
The commission, the full commission will consider this as a action item. So before we have an opportunity to meet again, before you have an opportunity to meet again as the board, the Plan RVA commissioners will consider the proposed charter amendments.
So we need to take action on this tonight.
Or lobby that the commission defer action in February.
So we can lobby the Plan RVA to defer this.
Again, you could, yes.
To kind of get out of it. I know I know some of our county administrators have been to the Cooper Center.
Wallen Cooper. A lot of support in terms of environmental planning, transportation planning. They were open to supporting our local innovation grant. We chose to work with the other planning district commission, but they are a wealth of support for our community and member communities, particularly because of our size. We're so small. So,
Mr. Chairman, I said I was going to get off my soapbox, but this is the type of government bureaucracy that just irritates me to no end and back, because this entire organization is an offshoot of a previously funded organization who has now secured additional funding through a tax increase, and now they're asking us to pay $3,500 on top of that. And it's a very small amount of money, but it's the principle of it, in my opinion. And I'm sure my members on Plan RVA won't like what I say, but that's how I feel as one board member.
Mr. Chairman, if possible, could we can just vote, motion to say no, or vote to say nay on this action item, or just defer it until we get further information of, I guess, the past things that Plan RVA has helped us with, so we can get a track record of the things that they've done, and weigh those options in the future.
That's why I asked the question, because I know we have used them in certain instances.
Yeah. Well, let's see how they benefited us in the past, and then we can weigh it going forward if possible.
Does Plan RVA need a decision from us before our next board meeting?
No. The commissioners may be called to vote on the plan charter amendment.
So we can.
And the decision to bring it before our board is so that you, as the representative of the community, Mr. Coda, has feedback from the board about how you support or don't support the proposed amendments. And the proposed amendments would result in a local membership dues of $3,509 for Charles City based on our population size.
So they're asking for direction from us as to whether or not we want to pay this or whether we don't want to. Is that right? That's what I hear you saying?
The members will be asked to vote on the proposed charter amendments.
And I'm that voting member.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now I understand. Then, gentlemen, as the voting member on the Plan RVA, I disagree with this. So therefore, I'm going to ask if you support me in voting nay on this when I vote on it in February. Is that correct? Then I'm going to ask for gentlemen's consensus that I vote nay.
Well, Mr. Coda, prior to you doing that, wouldn't you like to find out the history of how they benefited us in the past?
Actually, since I've been on the board so long, I've asked this question many, many times of all of our planning and oh no, I'm good. They can hear me. So there, tangible products we haven't benefited much from. However, with that being said, Mrs. Johnson reminds me on numerous occasions of the other things that they do behind the scenes for us, such as surveys and markets and this, that, and the other. However, strictly from a financial standpoint, that this was an offshoot from an already funded organization, and then they acquired funding to fund it. I'm going to say, I would like to say, if you all agree, that I disagree that they're now coming up and asking us for $3,500. Then we have a gentleman's consensus that I will vote nay on that at our February RVA meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Prior to, could you find out why they want to increase also?
Be more than happy to. Well, I'll get it to Ms. Johnson. Dr. Russell. She'll send it out for you.
Okay, next on the agenda. Let's see, emergency.
Emergency operations.
Okay. Is that on here anywhere?
It's actually, she put it in the back after, it's in your, you put it in there tonight, right? It's way back.
Tell me where you find it.
All right.
Okay, EOC.
It's pretty thick.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, here you go.
There you go.
There you go, you got it.
Yep.
This is it right here.
Okay.
Mr. Coda? I'm sorry, Mr. Black and Mr. Coda. The emergency operations plan before you this evening, and staff is requesting that you approve amendments to the emergency operations plan to add the social center as a backup shelter site. And the plan also addresses COVID-19 safety protocols. We are asking that you consider acting favorably on the emergency operations plan this evening so that we can take advantage of a FEMA grant opportunity in February.
Gentlemen, y'all have any questions or comments?
Motion for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any discussion on Mr. Black's motion? Vote Mr. Black.
Aye.
Mr. Coda.
Aye.
I vote side. Thank you.
Habitat for Humanity. I know. Mr. Smith, Mr. Black, and Mr. Coda wanted to revisit our previous discussion regarding the disposition of property or sale of property to Habitat for Humanity on Wilcox Neck Road. You'll recall about 2 months ago, the board authorized a public hearing for the sale of property to Habitat for Humanity to support affordable housing in the community. And there was a question raised regarding the sales price, and we wanted to affirm with the board that what your intent regarding the sale was. And so in your earlier discussions with Habitat, the agreed upon price in 2006 was $10,000. The property has significantly appreciated in value since that time, and has an assessed value of $21,300. And so in drafting up the sales agreement and our discussions with Habitat, we thought it prudent to come before the board to make you aware of the significant appreciation in the value of the property and to ask what is your preference for the sales price and our preparation for the public hearing, which will likely be at our February meeting, right? Okay.
So this increase, is this a grant or what is to get the?
No, it's this property that is county owned, and Habitat is interested in the acquisition of those parcels for affordable housing to create more affordable housing opportunities in the county.
But what they've requested is, Mr. Chairman, if I may, that we sell 2 parcels to them for $10,000 when in reality they're worth 4 times that. And back in 2006, the county, when they sold the adjoining parcels, they required that they be sold at fair market value. Am I correct, Mr. Boyd? Okay, just want to make sure. So what we're doing here is we are considering whether or not we're going to sell it to them for 10 or at fair market value. Well, that's the adjacent lot, but we do know that, of course, these 2 lots are now. I, as one board member, think that we should sell those at fair market value as we've done in the past. Would that be your recommendation, Mr. Boyd? Per lot. Okay, so so we're looking at a difference between 10,000 and 42,000. Okay. It is, sir.
Is there any way we can meet in the middle with that? You know, can we adjust that to suit our needs and to benefit them at the same time? And also with the price going up with $21,000, is that going to impact their, I guess, allocation of resources to build homes? And how so? That's some questions that I feel like we need to ask.
One more time. Okay.
No. My question is, how would selling this property to them for $21,000 at fair market value impact their allocation of resources to build affordable housing? And also, is there a way that we can meet them in the middle with, let's say, $15,000? You know, is it up for negotiation amongst us to do that? That's my question.
I reckon the way I look at land, you know, you have one shot at it. It's something that you cannot grow, and it's going to continue to go up in value. So we need to make a decision where we accept it at fair market value or less.
Well, that's why I asked, how would that fair market value impact their forward progression of building homes, affordable housing? That's what I'm wondering. Does anybody have the answer to that? Or
well, they certainly would go into it with significant positive equity if we sold it for that price. You know, the improved value plus, you know, the value of the land. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there's been a lot of discussion prior to you coming on the board about the resulting payments from Habitat for Humanity homes. I'm going to get that in just a second. And I really think that, do we have to make a decision on this tonight?
No, sir.
Okay. I would strongly recommend that you, as the new board member, defer it and between now and next month, get them to give you research numbers on past Habitat for Humanity House projects, the payment schedules, and how that has worked out. And take just get a good feeling for everything that's going on with the Habitat for Humanity project. I'm a strong supporter of it. Don't think I'm not. However, you need to know everything going into it so that I think you can make a good decision. And I would love to hear your thoughts after you do that, if that's good with you. I was actually on the Housing Task Force board for a while. And that's how I was enlightened to a lot of this. And I will actually send suggestions over to Dr. Russell on the information to send to you tomorrow. I'll try to do it tomorrow before the week's over. But I would recommend, if it's good with you, to defer this until next month just to get a little bit more information on it.
Sure, I'm open to that. But if you all had to make a decision today, what would it be?
Well, hang on just a second, if you sir.
Go ahead.
Is it legal for us to express how we would vote before we vote? Is that legal? I mean, I guess I'm sure it is, but I just want to verify.
We can discuss it.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure we keep ourselves straight up here. So your question was to Mr. Chairman, what? Oh.
If you had to make a decision today, what would it be?
As I always say to Ms. Johnson, my knee-jerk reaction is I would vote to sell it at fair market value tonight. But I would rather wait and make the decision after you are more versed on it and can give us more input.
That's why I say you don't get but one shot at selling land, and if you don't get it, then you're lost. But you ask good questions. What would it do to Habitat? If I had to vote tonight, I would say we need to get fair market value. But once you get the information and share it with us, I might change my mind.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I motion that we defer the decision on the Habitat for Humanity as presented until our January meeting, because we should be able to be versed on that and ready to go. I'm sorry, our February meeting. We should be ready to go. But my motion is to defer until February.
Any discussion on Ms. Cota's motion to defer? Vote, Ms. Cota.
Aye.
Mr. Slide.
Aye.
My vote's aye. Thank you.
Aisha, can you bring Alec Rebner into the meeting if he's present? Mr. Smith, you ready for me? The next item is a proposed administrative support contract. Mr. Smith, Mr. Black, and Mr. Cota, included in your package is a proposed administrative support contract for up to $15,000 in expenses for support from the Crater Planning District Commission for the administration of our proposed our local innovation grant. You will recall that the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development required that Charles City County include an administrative budget in the proposed grant budget. That administrative budget is approximately $50,000, and they require that so that we meet certain administrative benchmarks for the grant, to include an interim audit, a closeout report, execution of the contract, and it is staff's proposal, with the exception of those funds that would be set aside for this administrative agreement, that the additional dollars from the admin budget would go to construction cost.
You say you had someone that you're bringing in that you did.
Crater Planning District Commission.
Was no one on there?
If he was. In,
okay.
The executive director.
But he's not on there.
I don't believe that he is, or I don't believe that he's it. I don't believe he is.
Do I have any questions or comments? for Ms. Dr. Russell?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I want to be perfectly clear about what we're doing. What we're doing is we're spending $10,000
15, up to 15.
up to.
15.
It says up to 10 in here.
The contract says 15.
Okay, so let's change that. So what we're doing now is you're asking us to agree to spend $15,000 for someone to administer the grant for the food pantry to make sure that we do it correctly. Is that the short order
To help.
what we're doing?
To help, Mr. Cota, because we would be spending significant time with it as well. So yes.
Just so the public knows exactly what we're doing, we received a $500,000 grant in order to do the food pantry, but it required a $200,000 match from the county. So up to this point, we have committed as a board $200,000 worth of taxpayer money to a permanent facility located in Ruthville, food pantry that would serve the citizens of Charles City, which I supported and the entire board supported. They're now asking for another $15,000. Do you know where this money would come from? Is it coming out of this year's fiscal or next year's?
The money would come out of the $500,000 grant. The state requires that a portion of their dollars be set aside for admin.
Okay, so you're not asking for an additional $15,000 after all.
No.
I'm good. Yeah. When you spend $15,000, my blood pressure goes up. But you're spending $15,000 that we've technically already got and already spent to a degree. It's not a $15,000 additional dollars.
It is not.
I motion for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any discussion on Mr. Scotta's motion? Vote Mr. Scotta?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
My vote is aye also. Thank you.
Ready? The next item on the agenda, Mr. Smith, is a proposed board recess policy. And it is, make sure I get this correct, when the board recesses from a regular meeting to another date other than our next regular meeting date, there's some concerns about how the public is aware, is informed of the proposed recess meeting date. And the policy is very brief. I'll read it verbatim. A meeting of the board is recessed when the board takes a break between sittings and after the recess business is resumed where it left off. A properly called regular or special meeting may be recessed or joined to a time and place certain by a motion made and adopted by a majority of the board in open session during the regular or special meeting. The motion shall state the time and place when the meeting will reconvene, with the exception of posting the recess meeting date, time, and location on the county's social media page. No further notice need be given of such a recess meeting. Does that satisfy the intent of the board for the policy?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I was the one that brought this to the attention. That was one of my 2:00 in the morning revelations whenever we had recess from a board meeting a couple months ago about how do we notify the public. And I wanted to make a policy, and that's why I asked this come, that we will follow and that everyone knows what that policy is, so that they know when we are going to recess and when the recess meeting is, because all recess meetings are open to the public unless we come back, go into session and go into executive. So that's why I asked for this. The only thing that I would ask, and I like what you've done, Dr. Russell. The only thing I would ask is that you leave off, or let's reword Randy Boyd, if you will. We are actually confining ourselves when we say when the recess business is resumed where it left off, and that is not always the case. So we need to reword that, and if you could reword that for us really quick, I would appreciate it. And it says let me know when you got it. A meeting of the board is recessed when the board takes a break between sittings and after the recent business is resumed where it left off. And that's not always the case. So I would like to rewrite that first sentence so that we do not confine ourselves only to the business be resumed where it left off. The bylaws just state that we can recess at any time. So there's no, sir. I only want to draft a policy separate from the bylaws, a policy with our government or our staff that will notify the public. This is strictly about notification only. So, and I want it to stay right there without getting all through the bylaws and all that. If it's legal, to where we have an internal policy that this board motions and approves on how we're going to notify the public that we have recessed. Okay. Okay. I think I got it. You all have anything? I mean, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have right now. You good? All right. I'm going to try to get this motion correct. Mr. Boyd, I'm going to be looking at you as I do this to make sure your head is shaking.
Do you want to get an opportunity to fine tune it prior to making this? Like,
you want to just
Yeah.
send that back to us and we can vote on it at our next meeting rather quickly? Okay. Okay. I'll tell you what. Why don't we just take and move this one more time to our February meeting, and then therefore Ms. Russell can get with you, I can talk with you, and we can have this back at the next meeting. Okay. Yes, just defer.
Okay. With consensus, we can defer until the next meeting. Okay. Thank you all.
Perfect.
Next item are upcoming events. So we have COVID vaccine discussion on January 28th, 6 p.m. That is going to be a virtual public meeting for want to wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day. 14th. We can't hear you. Oh, sorry. Did y'all? They didn't even hear the other one, did they? Will you go back for me? I apologize. So we have a COVID-19 vaccine discussion that is scheduled for January 28th at 6 p.m. That's going to be a virtual meeting. We'll get more information about the COVID vaccine availability. And Mr. Johnson actually discussed that earlier this evening. So want to wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day. And then our last notice is that our county offices will be closed for President's Day on February 15th.
Hold on just one second. Is that all you have?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. This is the
Second public comment period. You're going to do them both, though.
yeah. Like I said, we might have some comments that we didn't comment on, but I'm going to take all of them at one time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your second comment for the evening. If you have any comments that you would like to type in, we will give you time to do that. So start typing your comments in. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, sir.
I would recommend to the chairman that Mr. Charlie Pinello's comment not be read. Charlie Pinello. It is against our bylaws, if I'm not mistaken. As far as the other ones go, I don't. You've got those on your screen, sir.
First one will be Mr. Sullivan. Is that the way y'all tracking it? Is that the first one you see?
I think so, yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Sullivan made a,
Hold on, Mr. One above it from Kurt Kunas. That is a comment that came in at 8:23. I think that was after our last comment.
that Mr. Kurt Kunas, is that correct? Made a comment, I think, that the buffer zone is important regardless of the neighbors, since neighbors change. That was his comment. The next one is by Mr. Kevin Sullivan. At the November meeting, the county representative stated that tax exemption for residential solar equipment could cost the county millions in tax dollars. The county commissioner of revenue told me that currently the county revenue from solar panels is about $450. I really don't know where the county resident got her number, but that is quite a gap. I would like the Board of Supervisors to reconsider the tax exempt and to encourage more residents to install residential solar. The next one is which down to
They started commenting to each other.
yeah. Next one, Mr. Sullivan, is that a comment he made?
I would read that one.
Yeah. Mr. Sullivan have another comment he made. I feel like it would be a mistake to pull out of the plan RVA at this time. One of the services they offer is emergency planning, which is absolutely necessary during the current pandemic. Well, we're not at the table. We don't get any play our cards. $3,000 is a reasonable amount for our contribution. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Have one for Ms. Alice Hines Walton. Comments on item 7. We should sell the property at fair market value. We are not asking more than that. We should not give property / real estate away at the discounted price. Even the HFH, yeah, eventually homeowner will reap benefits and home value over the years. Thank you, Ms. Hines, Ms. Walton. Something changed on this here. I saw one from Ms. Wanda
Yeah, she's the next one.
Roberts. So we are discussing giving $5,000 back to Habitat for Humanity that is giving someone the opportunity to own a home that would never be able to get a home, but we won't consider making money from B-pole tax. The county needs $5,000, but not B-pole. Money per resident is possibly over $100,000. That would also provide a job for someone.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I may, would it be appropriate to have our assistant county administrator read the comments? I mean, not, nothing against what you're doing.
It's fine with me.
I'm just saying that, I
agree.
I don't feel that you have a real need to do that. I think she could take on that role if she doesn't mind.
Okay, you've been assigned a new role, Ms.
What?
Are there?
That's what I would
Okay. Nate Nicholas, how is a company allowed to lay fiber in the county without the county knowing where the lines would be laid? Could you please repeat Mr. Johnson's office number? It's Barbara Hayes. Elizabeth Weber Edwards. Please consider setting up a Google form for commenting. This will allow folks to comment during the meeting without a disruption to the meeting. A member of the board can then pull up the feedback during the comment period and read it out loud. And yes, please have a moderator read the comments. Mr. Coda, I recommended a moderator during our conversation last month. And then the comment for Mr. Johnson's phone number, Mrs. Hayes, is 804-652-4511.
Okay, our public comment period is now closed. Thank you, everyone.
The next agenda item, board directives and comments.
Gentlemen, y'all have any comments or directives?
Mr. Chairman, my only directive comment would be an internet update. Also, is that something that we can provide our citizens with throughout our county? I believe people are really desperate, and there's a need for internet. More so the update. We're growing really impatient, but I ask for more patience from our citizens, as our original completion date was June, I believe. Am I correct on that? It's June, yeah. So we still have a ways to go, but the last update was 92% completion. And other than that, I like to say, please exercise caution when it comes to social distancing, and also wearing your mask and your PPE when you're amongst your peers and your coworkers. And please just be safe.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. I want to answer a couple of questions here in a minute, but I want to bring it to the board's attention because I'm going to make a motion. I didn't know that this existed until a few weeks ago, and this is a Charles City County, Virginia inoperable vehicle permit license, an inoperable vehicle license, and I'm holding that up so everybody can see it. I did not even know they existed until it was brought to my attention, and when I contacted the Treasury Department, she didn't even know where they were because they hadn't issued any in so long. And so I'm going to motion, based on the fact that our ordinances in the county do not support this. They do. They support an operable vehicle license. So someone can go down and get 5 of these and have 5 unlicensed, uninspected vehicles in their yard. My business can only have 5, and that's currently registered and insured. Okay. Then I would like to, instead of making a motion, I would like for us to right. That's what I'm getting ready to say. Mr. Boyd said that it is part of our code, so therefore, I would like to, with the board's consensus, to have a report on that, on the code, and changing the code that supports this. Is that the proper way to say ask for gentleman's consensus? Okay. If that's okay with you, gentlemen. That's good. Okay. That's that one. I'm going to answer just a couple of questions if I can, Mr. Chairman. I do that normally during a regular. Ms. Wanda Roberts, you're still on the B-poll tax, and it says that we could possibly collect over $100,000 from B-poll tax. The problem is we're collecting a lot on a merchant's capital tax now that would be eliminated. And it was thought out, and a lot of discussion went into why we were just putting on hold charging a B-poll tax, because the benefit of the revenue offset by, as you said, provide someone a job, and the increased workload in order to administrate that. We've been down that path, and it was very explanatory as to why we did not do the B-pole tax. The $100,000 sounds great, but by the time you start deducting everything it takes to make the 100,000 and the revenue you would lose, then the B-pole tax at this time is not favorable. And Nate Nichols, the company from day one, Comcast, and I as one board member am not happy at all with Comcast's notification or communication, even with the county, as everyone witnessed during our town hall meeting. But you ask, how was a company allowed to lay fiber without the county knowing where the lines were being laid? Actually, we did know, and I posted on September the 3rd a map of where those lines were being laid on my personal Facebook page. And I think it was actually put out on the county county social media page also. So we did know generally, but not specifically. And that's what I have been begging Comcast to come up with specifically. However, in their contract, it actually says that they're not going to divulge that information until the project is completed. I sort of understand why, but I wish it were different. Recent developments that they are going to be serving 250 more houses than they originally thought, which brings the total up to 2,500 homes. I have getting reports from constituents that they are on the brink of signing up to Comcast, that they have been contacted by Comcast, and they are making appointments to start signing people up. So it's actually happening before they estimated to be in June or whatever. So that's to answer that question. And I think that's about it.
Mr. Coda, to your point, we need to start considering, as we mentioned at our last Board of Supervisors meeting, supplementing that with county funding. Going down those roads, or I understand it'll be costly, but I know it's a need in our community. So I'm just saying that's something that we need to start preparing for and explore different options as to how we can supplement internet to homes that don't have access. So
okay. And believe it or not, I actually agree with you. However, I will tell you now that the price tag would be so enormous. And I'm going to give you two examples. Someone reported on social media that they had contacted Comcast about coming a certain distance, and they said, sure, it's $303,000. And I did not have any idea how much it cost to actually lay fiber until, and I'm not going to name names, but a company that was asked to sign on early for the ground laid fiber that comes from 60 all the way into the county and into the industrial center. The industrial center is on ground laid fiber, so they're connected straight in, not through the air, whatever. This is on a different fiber than Comcast. So let me be specific on that. They came back, this company came back later and said, well, we would like to be added on now. Well, the fiber had already been laid through that area. In order to run, and probably, and I'm going to estimate, maybe 500 feet, if that. I don't even think it's 500 feet. It was a $10,000 price tag that came before us. And you remember that, Mr. Smith? It came before us asking for help from the EDA because it was a business and from the county. But just that little, I don't even think it's 500 feet, was $10,000. And that was years ago. So I'm about looking. You said, let's look. But I do know it is ultimately expensive. I also know that SES is now signing up people through and I'm switching gears, people, so please don't let me get confused here. SES, the wireless broadband, I actually stopped and talked to a gentleman that was doing signal strength testing, and they're doing that throughout the whole county. They have started putting up little yard signs at intersections saying, give them a call. It's a 434 number. And so definitely check with SES if you do not get, a favorable opinion from Comcast. I'll say it again. I've had zillions of calls about this Comcast fiber. They are pretty much duplicating their old analog lines. And the one way that you can identify the old analog lines is if you look at the telephone poles, there is you got the 2 or 3 lines at the very top. That is the electricity. About a third way down the pole, there's a thick black fiber coaxial cable. That is the existing infrastructure that Comcast had for cable TV. And from what I've looked at their mapping, and it definitely applies to my house because it stops directly in front of my home, they are duplicating that in phase one. I have recommended to people that are not included in phase one, if you have a lot of residences on your private road, get those residences together, ask them if they would sign on if it were available, get that information to Comcast. Because if you come to Comcast and say, I've got 24 or 26 houses down this one road and we're all ready to sign on if you'll bring it, that might sway them. I can't say that it will. I'm just offering suggestions. So anyway, that did on the internet. And that's all I had, isn't it, Dr. Russell? That's all I have. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Internet, Ms. Russell, if possible, could you possibly, if possible, could you look into the last mile with Dominion Energy? I know they're looking to partner with rural communities to middle mile. Sorry.
And you're right.
Yeah, middle mile. To partner with rural communities to provide internet to those, inaccessible areas. So if you can look into that so that we can hopefully get internet to these people. That's all I need.
Thank you. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Cole and Mr. Black, for those remarks. It would be good if we could get the whole county in internet, but I think it's going to take time. But I heard a comment the other day which was surprising when I told them how far we had come with internet and where some other counties stand right now. They said we're way ahead of other counties. So, but we still want it regardless. We're gonna work hard to try to get it. So with that, do we have any
Need for
executive session?
We do, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, we have need for an executive session for personnel.
Anything else?
I believe that's it.
You have anything for you, Ms. Cola?
I do, but it's under personnel.
Okay, so everything is on the personnel. Okay. Do you think we will make any decision this evening?
Not when we come back. No, I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for participating in the meeting this evening. We appreciate it very much. We are going into executive session right now to discuss personnel, and my colleague said we will not take any action tonight.
After executive.
After executive session, we will not take any action on that.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I motion that we go into executive session for personnel.
Okay, discussion on Mr. Cole's motion. Vote, Mr. Cole?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
My vote's aye also. Thank you all very much.